Welcome to the ArmaniTalks Show, episode 37. I'm your host, Armani Talks. Within the show, I am covering a range of topics on communication skills for engineers and entrepreneurs. A couple of these topics about communication skills include public speaking, social skills, storytelling, and much more. To get insights on how to level up your way with words, join the tribe by hitting subscribe, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. These episodes are also released on podcast form in audio, so you could also listen to it as you are doing a long commute. Now, at the time of recording this, it is really cold in Tampa. It's roughly 32 degrees. I woke up this morning and I end up going on TikTok, and I see certain creators on TikTok are saying that it is snowing in Tampa. I have never seen snow in Florida. And I see a lot of these creators, they are super excited. They're like, well, we wish it starts snowing a little bit more down south. Where for me, I am the exact opposite. I noticed that with the cold weather, it is something that I don't like. And I think there's a different reason for why girls like cold weather versus guys. My philosophy is you should never trust a man that likes cold weather a little too much. Because with girls, whenever they like cold weather, it's predominantly due to aesthetic purposes. Chances are it's getting colder, so now they can wear those boots that they haven't worn in a long time. They can wear that jacket, that scarf. Most of it is due to aesthetic purposes. But whenever a man is saying, I like the cold weather a lot, chances are they are saying this so they don't have to be productive. I recall yesterday, I wanted to be really productive. And I noticed that whenever it's super cold, you keep overthinking. For example, something as small as, hey, Armani, today's a Saturday. You should go to the basketball court, the outdoor one, by the way, and play some basketball. I was genuinely thinking about doing that. But then I look at the weather app and they were saying that it was going to be super windy, like deadly windy in terms of Florida context. And by deadly, I mean it's going to be so windy that if you go outside, your face may start cracking up and you may actually get a cold. So when you read stuff like this, you're starting to think, well, should I actually play basketball today? You know what? Let me wait today. But instead of playing basketball, can I at least go for a walk around my neighborhood? Once again, you just keep thinking deadly winds. And you're thinking, nah, let me cancel it. And then you're thinking, well, let me go to the gym. How about that? The gym's gonna have the heater on. But now you're overthinking again. You're thinking, well, do I wear long pants to the gym or do I wear shorts? Because I mean, they're gonna have the heater on. If they're gonna have the heater on, I'm supposed to be doing an intense workout, and now I'm gonna be hot in the gym. So let me wear shorts. You wear shorts to the gym, but by the time that you're walking out, now you're sweaty and it's cold and you're freezing and you have a trip coming up next week and you're thinking that you may have gotten a cold. So with the cold weather, it is a reason not to be productive. And when a lot of men, they're like, I love the cold weather, all I'm thinking is, what exactly are you running away from? I think someone needs to do a study on this. When you go from your 20s to your 30s, a lot of people go from being able to tolerate the cold weather to straight up hating it. And I think in terms of your 30s, that is when you really solidify your philosophy on can you tolerate the cold or do you flat out hate it? Where I'm one of those guys that flat out hates it. I can't stand the cold weather because I believe it brings a lot more harm than good in many aspects of life. So when I heard that it was going to be snowing in Florida, I thought, oh, great. Florida doesn't need this. Because also, when it's snowing a lot, you need to alter the jobs as well, where there needs to be a certain position that is getting that snow off the road. And there was this one page on social media where there's this young guy. He's roughly 24 years old, very baby faced, and he owns a business where he moves snow off of the roads. Well, he's documenting it, and throughout his clips, one thing I noticed was that plenty of his workers would just abruptly quit. And his right hand man is like, hey, Rajesh just quit. And this young guy's like, already? We just hired Rajesh 3 days ago. So he goes up to Rajesh and he's like, hey, I heard you're quitting. And Rajesh says, yes, unfortunately I am. This type of job is way too difficult for me. So this young kid is like, see, that's one of the tough parts of running a business like this. People are always quitting. I'm thinking, people are always quitting? Imagine that if you are low in supply of workers, right? Imagine a lot of people are like, I don't want to do work like that. Then what are you going to do? I see people up north that have to actually shovel snow out of their parking area so they could park their car. And up there, it's seen as disrespectful if someone goes ahead and shovels all the snow off and you just take the parking spot. So there's this whole different fluency you have to learn. There's this whole different job market that you need to build, especially if your state is consistently going to have snow. And by consistent, even if it's 3 months out of the year, that is not a good look. In my opinion, snow messes up so many things, and just the cold weather as a whole messes up a lot of things. So that's one of the things that I learned with cold weather. In my 30s, I don't just tolerate it anymore, I flat out hate it. Now, with that being said, I was talking about this young guy that was managing people older than him. This young babyface guy who he was managing, I would say, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, and every now and then these guys were snapping at him. For example, one of the workers, he had them use a point of sale system. It's one of those tablets that you have where you could spot your routes and all that stuff. Well, in one of the clips, one of the older gentlemen, he's roughly 50 years old, he is chewing out this 24-year-old. He's like, man, you could get that tablet and you could shove it up your butt. And the young guy's like, what do you mean by that? And this old guy's like, you younger generation guys, all you guys do is work with technology. You guys make easy things really difficult. Why couldn't you just give me my route on a map? Why are you giving me this tablet for? And why is it so confusing to use? So this is something that I noticed. This guy is younger than his workers. And there's always that level of, well, how can you know better than me? Throughout my career, I've had situations where peers of mine, they would move up in their respective industry, and then they would be like, Armani, I'm managing now. And I ask him, who are you managing? And then he starts reciting off a lot of these names. And I was like, wait a minute. I know those people. Those are the people that trained me. And if my math is correct, those people are at least in their 40s or maybe even in their 50s, and you're in your 30s. How's it like? Do they like taking orders from a person who is significantly younger than them? That's when my friend was real. My friend was like, not always, Armani. There are times when I'm telling someone to do something and they will just argue back with me. It's sort of like the title thing, where if you are, let's say, really high up there, you're a managing director, and an associate is telling you, hey, you need to do this, this, this. You, as a person of a higher title, may completely ignore the associate. And the same thing happens when you have a super big baby face or you're significantly younger than your workers. Plenty of people are just going to disrespect you. And this is where you need to be very firm from the very beginning. The first way to be firm, in my opinion, is to actually know what you're talking about. Whenever you are the biggest subject matter expert in the team, there's that invisible respect that you get. Okay? And you need to actually be able to exercise the fact that you're a subject matter expert when the head honcho is gone. So let's say you're a team of 8 and you are not the manager yet. The manager's name is Matt. Matt is a veteran and he's old. He's grizzled, right? He is 58 years old. He's been managing this team for a long time. So Matt is the boss. But you are, many people view you as the second in command. Whenever Matt leaves, let's say he has to go to a 2-week long vacation, who are other people going to come to? They're going to come to you. They're going to come to you because you know a lot regarding this team. And in situations like this, you need to step up to the plate. And one of the best times to step up to the plate is when it's really chaotic. There's going to be times when Matt leaves, and now things are breaking a lot, and everyone's coming to you. Hey, what do we do? And if you're someone who's like, well, no, I mean, this is Matt's job, then you're never going to win that invisible respect over. But if you're someone who embraces the moment, you're like, okay, well, Matt's gone. Let me join this bridge call. Let me explain what's going on. No, no, no. You don't have to worry about it. I got this. This is a way to win over respect within your team. Now people know that when the going gets tough, you are going to step up. You may not always have the answers, but there are going to be plenty of times when you are seeking the answers regardless. Now, one day, what's going to happen is Matt is going to leave. Matt's going to say, I got another opportunity. And he gives in his 2 week notice. Now you are no longer the second in command. You may actually be the first in command. And this is something that people don't talk about enough, where you just get tossed into a job position. You ever had that one moment when you just got tossed into a Zoom call, a call that you didn't really belong in? Someone's like, hey, can you join the Zoom? You join the Zoom, and you have no context because other people have been talking regarding this topic for a long time. They have the context. You're just kind of coming in. You're like, okay, someone told me to join the Zoom. I'm in the Zoom. Now they start asking you questions. What do you think? And you're like, about what? Now you look unprepared. Just envision that feeling where you get tossed into a Zoom meeting that you don't belong in. There are 50 other people and 20 of them are asking you questions. It feels weird, right? Now get that feeling and amplify it. Imagine a situation where instead of you getting tossed into a Zoom call that you don't belong in, you get tossed into a role that you don't belong in. Once Matt leaves, now everyone is coming to you and you're doing stuff that you never even thought about doing. You're reaching out to your boss's boss's boss because that's who Matt used to routinely give updates to. You're learning a lot at rapid rates, but you could tell that this is way beyond your pay grade. And this happens a lot. There are going to be plenty of times when either your manager gets fired or they end up switching positions, and it is you that has to be able to do it. So, a good philosophy in life that you want to have is you want to work like your boss is going to get fired. When you have this sort of philosophy, you start carrying yourself more like a winner and you start learning at rapid rates. And as a manager, you need to always understand that your second in command may be in charge one day. Maybe you got sick out of the blue moon. Maybe you got fired or something. And if you're someone that genuinely cares about the team, you need to allow the second in command to join all the different meetings. They don't always have to participate, but they should at least join the calls so they understand what is going on. But if you are the second in command that can always pick up more responsibility when the first in command leaves, now it doesn't necessarily matter how young you are. People are going to respect you because they at least view you as competent. Another thing that you need to be able to do, in my opinion, is to be close to people, but don't be too buddy buddy with people. When you are someone's manager, it should be a little bit rare for them to see you. If they always see you, now they're starting to view you as a buddy rather than someone that they report to. And I recall early on in my career, there was this one manager that I had that was so hard to get a connection with. I recall there were times when I was an intern, I was trying to book meetings with him, and he would always accept. It was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting, but he would always have to go in 10 minutes. It was really hard for me to get his time. So what he did was he had someone else look over me. Her name was Melissa, and this manager went back to doing his work. The fact that I rarely saw this manager did two things to me. I didn't ever want to approach him with anything, but at the same time, it made me respect him more. Now, this guy overdid it, in my opinion, where you do want to be hard to reach, but when you're actually reachable, be present. Where it was really hard to get meetings with him, but the rare times that he would accept the meetings, instead of utilizing the entire 30 minutes that I booked, he would only use 10 minutes then kick me out, which I don't think was fair. So, in order to be a good manager, you don't want to be one of these guys that is always visible in terms of your employees. You're always having these cooler talks with them. You're always going to different restaurants, gossiping about other workers with them. You want to be a little bit harder to get a hold of. So people are not bombarding you with BAU requests, right? So that's something that is very difficult to do, especially if you are in the same geographic location as someone, if you are always seeing them for multitude of reasons, right? But you want to do your best to keep yourself busy so you're not always talking to your um, the people that report to you. This is a way in order to win more respect with your employees because when they finally do see you, they have respect for you. Now, in addition to that, it's just a game of consistently showing up. Every now and the days, being critical. Every day is not going to be a good day, right? Certain days you do have to be a little bit more critical. You do have to let people know when they didn't do things the correct way. But at the end of the day, you're always letting people know that it's not personal. And you want to have these conversations beforehand, in my opinion, especially when you're young. When you are young, you are taking over this team, and most of the people that are reporting to you are way older than you. They have kids that are roughly around the same age as you. You have to understand that you are also battling these people's egos. So, what you want to do is you want to have a conversation with them from the very beginning. Look, Neil, you are a person that I've learned a lot from, especially when I first came into the company. You taught me a lot. However, we understand how the dynamics are going. You are reporting to me, and I want you to feel as comfortable as possible. Now, we have a good relationship where sometimes, everything's going to be going well, but every now and then we may disagree in a certain approach. And I'm one of those guys that is a straight shooter. Are you someone who likes that, Neil? Do you like when I'm a straight shooter, or do you like it when I'm being indirect? You ask this question to Neil. Neil's not going to say, I like someone who's indirect. Neil's going to say, okay, well, I'm someone who likes straight shooters as well. Okay, Neil, so is it okay if I tell it to you like it is? Right? I don't want to lie to you. Neil says yes, and now you have met the correct expectations in his mind. In his mind, he is expecting a straight shooter, and in one of the future meetings, let's say Neil messed up something bad, you call him into your office and you tell him, remember that earlier conversation where you said you wanted a straight shooter? Well, Neil, I am going to be a straight shooter in this context. And boom, 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 you give the critiques. And the likelihood of Neil accepting it is higher than if you just are always nice to him or you bombard him with criticisms out of the blue moon. So you want to set the correct expectations. Other than that, you need to learn the art of controlling what you can and letting go of what you can't. There have been plenty of times when I used to think managing is so easy. I don't know why managers complain about it. And then the first in command would go on vacation for roughly 2 weeks. And now I'm the one that's in charge. And when I'm in charge, I notice, I'm telling people to do X, Y, Z. Some people, they are going to do their tasks as soon as you tell them, and you feel good about this. Other times, people will say that they'll do it, but they will never do it. And other times they will say they are going to do it and they do it, but it's not how you pictured it in your mind. And that's when you are going to have to learn the power of delegating certain tasks. Not every task is going to be done exactly to your desire. Certain tasks, someone is going to do a completely different way. Sometimes they're going to do it sloppy and you're going to have to coach them. But one of the biggest things is to let go of control. When you are micromanaging too much, not only do you lose the respect from your employees, I'm talking too much. There's a certain level of you want to be involved in certain projects, specific projects, versus you are talking their ear off on something that's supposed to be a BAU request, right? No one is going to always do a job that is similar to you. They have their own flavor of doing it. And that's something that you have to learn, the art of delegating. Delegating is a very important skill set to learn. And in my opinion, you could practice this more often than not. There are plenty of times when you feel as though you're a little too stressed, you're doing way too much work, and you're thinking, this is way beyond my pay grade. How come other people are not helping me? These are situations when you want to use it as an opportunity to delegate. So, for example, when I was getting married, I recall from my groomsmen, there were different people that had different skill sets. Now, if I'm just doing everything and my groomsmen aren't doing anything and I'm never saying anything to them, then the fault is on me. But if it's one of those situations where I'm like, I am not a good dancer, I don't know anything about that. Hey, groomsman A, can you help me with the dance? Can you create it for me? I've delegated this task off of me to him. Another thing, you need to get one of those getaway cars, the one that you drive off in. I don't know anything about cars. Groomsman B, you know a lot about cars. Can you help me out with this? And a lot of the times when you are telling people what they are good at and you are saying that you are not good at it and you need their assistance, they love it. They're like, sure, I'll do that. For example, if someone comes up to me and I'm the groomsman, and let's say this person's getting married, he's like, yo, dude, Armani, I have to give a speech to my wife. I am not the best public speaker. You are, though. Can you help me refine my speech? Yes, absolutely. Especially the way that you asked me. Absolutely. So delegating is all about spotting moments when you are stressed or you could be stressed, and then finding who you have at the moment around you, seeing what they're good at, seeing what you hate doing, and getting the task you hate doing and giving it to the other person. And plenty of times you'll be shocked by how much smoother it makes the entire experience versus you trying to do everything and you're doing a bad job, a mediocre job with a bunch of stuff, and other people are just getting mad at you now. They're like, man, I could have done it if you asked me to. Plenty of people want to assist you in delegating, but they just need to see that you are willing to give the power to them. And when you delegate, it's not something that you want to keep participating with a little too much. Where if someone is creating a dance for me, I don't want to keep saying, no, 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 I want to do this, I want to do that. Then I need to set the correct expectations from the beginning. Look, you and I are going to create this dance together. Is that cool? Versus you are going to create this dance and I'm just going to keep bothering you, right? Set the correct expectations from the beginning. So when you are delegating, it is going to make your job a lot easier. And I think one thing that leaders are great at is that they are great at delegating. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of the times you will reach out to a leader and you'll start asking them some questions that you consider BAU. You think everyone should know this, but they don't know. They're just like, let me ask Jonathan and get back to you. And you're like, well, why do you need to ask Jonathan for? Why don't you already know this? They don't know this because they are too busy delegating, and you want to practice in your day to day life. Find different situations when you feel overwhelmed. For example, if I am someone that is taking a road trip with a bunch of people and I'm the one driving the entire time, I want someone else to find where is the parking going to be when I get there? What are some good places to eat when we get there? Right? You could do this in a one on one situation. Maybe you and your wife, you guys are traveling somewhere new. Go ahead and practice delegating then. Maybe you, your wife, and your kids are traveling somewhere new. Practice delegating then. And the more that you practice delegating, the better that you will work as a manager, as a coach as a whole, because you are not too busy micromanaging others. Now, there are going to be certain times where micromanaging is not that bad. I actually saw this unique take from this one professor who was saying that micromanaging is good because it shows that you care. And I personally think it really depends on what type of work you are doing and how much ownership you have over it. For example, with Armani Talks, it's something that I'm really involved in. Let's say I'm creating a book. I'm very involved in the cover design. I'm very involved in the manuscript, how it's edited, right? Because I'm creating it. I want to edit it correctly. I want to see it formatted correctly. I want to see all of that. I am micromanaging a lot with that because I have a lot of ownership regarding that. Versus, let's say I am a manager in my day job. I do have a lot of ownership. right? I have a lot of people to answer for with applications. But in terms of owning the entire business, I have very little control. So I think when you have a lot of control in a certain business, people will forgive the micromanaging tendencies. They'll view you as a founder who truly cares versus a manager who is micromanaging too much. And instead of inspiring good work, you're just putting people in a state of fear. Be very careful about consistently putting people in a state of fear, especially your workers, because that's when you turn them from being very smart to being very dumb. I recall there was this one coworker that I had that was always really panicky in client calls. They would always say, "Don't say this, don't say that," and eventually got to a point where in a lot of these calls, I wasn't saying that much. I was letting them say a lot, but it wasn't a good situation because now this person is feeling stressed because they have to do all this work. Versus for me, someone who wants to contribute, but I keep overthinking, should I be able to contribute? Because I don't know, you guys are using all these words that you're saying contractually we're not supposed to use. You got me scared, man. And when you got me scared, that is when you are not going to get the best work out of me. And it's the same thing with different employees. When you get people a little too scared, now you're not going to get the best work out of them. It works like that in a plenty of situations. I've used the haircut example a lot. I've said the same thing with food before. When you are putting a lot of pressure on someone, now mentally you want to potentially create that pressure, but you don't want to articulate it out too much because now they may start messing up. And once they start messing up, they're going to subconsciously blame it on you. They're going to think, well, I can't even make mistakes around this guy, so I'm just going to not take risks at all. Personally, I think it is better to inspire people to take risks, to take ownership over certain projects versus making them so scared that all the pressure comes back onto you. That's why people will say that delegating is really easy. It's just about making others do your work. But I don't fully agree with that. I think delegating is a strong sign of a leader. And you'll see that people who just don't understand delegating are always like entry level workers. I recall a long time ago, I've been giving you some personal stories this episode. I was in a club, right? It was a college club, and I was one of the founders of this club. And I was just responsible for a lot of different things from setting up the Facebook event page to getting a flyer made to inviting the right people and all of that stuff. And eventually, I spotted the most important aspect of my role. The most important aspect was to make sure that people came, right? It wasn't necessarily the other stuff that led to people coming. The most important role, the thing that I would get the credit for, was if I got a lot of people to come to our event. Now, this was a situation where I felt as though I could delegate. So I told someone, hey, make the Facebook event page, put the beautiful description, do all of that. I found someone else. I was like, can you create a flyer for us? I found someone else and said, hey, can you set up all the supplies and stuff on the day of the event? I'm just delegating the tasks. And overall, all the ducks are lined up, as you can say. And now I know a lot of people are coming because I'm like doing a lot of text messages. Are you coming? Are you coming? Blah, blah, blah. And I just recall there was this one girl who was giving me a hard time. They're like, Armani just gets other people to do his work. Now, mind you, she doesn't do that much work herself. She doesn't understand what I am trying to do. I have to focus on the big picture. If we throw this event, everything is done correctly. Let's say I'm the one making the flyer, I'm the one making the Facebook page, but no one shows up. Now it was a waste of our time, right? We throw this big event, no one comes, we wasted a lot of money, right? Versus if a lot of people come, now we did not waste a lot of money. As a matter of fact, we could make profit. But I'm not going to explain this to the girl. It did hurt my feelings at first because I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm doing all this work, but from her perspective, she's only analyzing me based on what work did I actually do. Like, instead of me being that force behind this individual, let's call him Kofi, a guy who made the flyer, and I'm the guy who told him, hey, make the flyer, make it this concept on this date. Instead of her viewing that one layer above, she's just viewing Kofi doing the flyer and me as doing nothing. And that's one part of leadership that you are going to have to accept, where there are going to be times when you are the hidden force that gets everything moving, but people are just going to judge you by, did you actually do the work? Yes or no? It's a very silly thing to say as well. Like you'll see this happening a lot with Steve Jobs. Plenty of engineers in the College of Engineering hate Steve Jobs. They always talk up Wozniak, but they don't like Steve Jobs. Why? It's because Steve Jobs rarely ever coded, right? He rarely did any of the circuitry work. So the engineers are like, well, you didn't actually do the work. Not knowing that Steve Jobs was that hidden force underneath the engineers that inspired the engineers to do the job. So plenty of people are going to tell Steve Jobs, you don't do anything. You just take credit for other people's work. But that is not true. And it's difficult to explain because you're trying to explain concepts, intangibles a lot to them. Like, no, no, no. You got to understand, I had a lot of these meetings with these engineers. A lot of these engineers told me that this particular vision could not be done due to certain specifications. I had to distort their mind, right? To believe that they can do bigger things. This took a long time. I had to explain myself for weeks at a time, right? We had meetings about this. Don't even bother explaining it to someone who thinks Steve Jobs doesn't do work. And it's the same thing when I did all these other stuff behind the scenes to make sure that people actually came. I had this girl disrespecting me, saying I didn't actually make the flyer. So people are always going to say certain stuff about you. You just need to have that thick skin and see what matters versus what doesn't. And sometimes it's as important as just hearing someone articulate it out loud. That's why I love Reddit so much. Nowadays, I use Reddit a lot by accident. With Reddit, one of the features is that it always shows me someone else going through the same experience, right? I will feel really agitated about something, and I'm like, I the only person going through this? And then I will see that other people have went through the same thing. It's actually kind of spooky when you think about it, where any experience out there you have, content helps you realize that it's not as unique as you initially thought, right? And sometimes you'll be saying a phrase, right? And then someone else will say the same phrase from a different side of the world. For example, I was one time making a YouTube video about how I hate the cold weather. And I said something like, hell is not hot, hell is cold. A couple of years goes on by, and I hear another creator say the same exact phrase. And it just, at first, it agitates you. You're thinking, what the heck? Like, how are you thinking the same way as me? Right? But other times it makes you grateful, especially when you're going through a tough time and you're saying that other people went through the same exact situation, whether it's a stressful job, whether it's something with your kids, whether it's something with your landlord. When I was renting, for example, I had this landlord who went from being a very sweet lady to a very annoying lady as time went on by. And it just made me want to get this house even more. But there was this one day, I recall, I wanted to break my lease, right? And when I told the property owner that I was going to break the lease, the guy told me, okay, well, you need to pay 2 months' rent, plus you need to pay all of these other fees. I look at these fees and I'm like, what are these fees? It just had late fee after late fee after late fee. I'm like, no way can this be for me because I have automated payments to you guys. At the first of every month, there's a check that gets sent to you guys. What are you talking about? And then I said, well, I could pay the rent, right? That's what's written in the contract. What the heck are all these random fees? That's when this property manager engages the landlord, right? And this landlord doesn't even live in the same state as me. She's one of these people that owns the property from a different state, and she starts threatening me. She starts saying, "How dare you say you don't understand what these fees are? You are clearly lying. And you know what? I am going to ruin your credit. I am going to send all of these late payments to the credit bureau, and your credit is going to tank. You mark my words." Now, I am furious, right? Because I'm not someone who likes to be threatened like that. There's a paper trail of her threatening me. And this is when you have that opportunity to be really angry, right? Yeah, like you're like, how angry am I going to be in this scenario? And that's when I said no. Instead of being angry, use this as an opportunity to exercise emotional intelligence. And I did that because before I read a lot of articles about people with way worse landlords, where a landlord would literally just kick them out, change the locks, where my landlord didn't do that. And mind you, I still didn't respect her, but at least by knowing that I wasn't the only person that went through this, I was able to show some calm. Because if I called her and I started threatening her, right, she could have made all of the situation worse. So, first thing I did was take a breather. And then I was like, instead of me just going back and forth with her on email, let me call her. And that's when one of the things that I talk about Armani Talks a lot came in clutch. The power of being able to pick up the phone and make a call happen, whether it's at work, whether it's in your life. So I was like, I'm not gonna just keep going back and forth in emails with you. I am going to call you. And once I called her, you could tell her tune changed. People are way more bold with you on emails. They will be a little hostile towards you. But once you set up that call, you'll notice that their softness returns. And I called her. I said her name a lot, never called her out her name. I called her Mrs., said her last name, showed her a lot of respect. She was this older lady, and we were able to work out a deal. She waived all the fees, and she said I had to pay 1 month's rent instead of 2 months. So we worked out a great deal. And I was able to get this deal strictly through communication skills. So the topics that I talk about in ArmaniTalks.com, things ranging from public speaking to social skills to emotional intelligence, it's not something that is only applicable to your work and that's about it, or to your social life and that's about it. Plenty of times it will apply to hostile real world moments, and you will see that people have a lot of heated moments with their landlords. And if you're someone that is going through this right now, you want to use Reddit. Reddit is so powerful because I don't know if this is one of the things that the founders envisioned in the beginning, where it would enhance emotional intelligence, but I am guaranteeing it to you, it works. When you are going through a very unjust situation, the first thing you are going to think is, well, it's only happening to me. But the more that you talk to other people, the more that you consume content and you see that it's occurring to other people as well, now it's not something that is only happening to you. When you realize this, that is when you start to carry yourself much better. I still have these two coworkers, and one coworker was one time really upset because he made it his intention to work super hard in the year to get a bonus, and he got a bonus, but his salary increase was tiny, right? And since his salary increase was so tiny, even with the bonus, he was technically making less than the year before, $1,500 less. And it bothered him a lot because he thought in terms of total compensation. And when he saw that he was making less, he was actually going to make a rash decision and quit on the spot. He was going to just say, I'm done, man. This company does not respect me at all. Screw this company. But he was talking about this with someone else from a different company. And someone else from a different company said something like, well, I had the opposite thing happen to me. I got a pretty hefty salary increase, but my bonus sucked. But yeah, overall, I made less this year than I did last year. Now, the other guy who was going to make that rash decision was like, wait, you are making less this year than last year, and did you do a good job? Wait, you did a good job too? So you also are making less this. Okay, okay. You know what? I'm not going to quit. Okay, so this happens to other people. So this is a big part of building emotional intelligence, in my opinion, where you start to understand that a lot of the problems that you went through, it's not always something that you went through alone. Plenty of people in human history have went through the same thing. And that's one of the fun things about studying history. A lot of the times when you are studying history, you are seeing that people went through way worse than you. It's a little demented, but in my opinion, this is a great way to build your toughness. Because when you are reading a book and you see, man, this guy's getting sued, this guy got divorced, this guy got kicked out of his own company, you're just seeing all this bad stuff happening to him. And if it's an autobiography, this guy is sharing exactly how he felt when he was going through that traumatic moment. You're reading it and you're like, and here I am whining about getting yelled at by my boss, right? This guy is going through hell right now, where for me, yeah, I'm going through a tough time, but it's nothing remotely as bad. Suddenly you have perspective. See, that's the power of content. Content can give you perspective. Now, you may be in this one situation with content creation where you're like, well, if everyone went through a similar situation, what is the point of me creating content in the first place? Because everything that should have been said has been said. That's where I disagree. Where I'm sure plenty of people had issues with their landlord, but I doubt people had the same exact situation that happened to me with my landlord, right? Where she's just making up some expenses. Or maybe someone else did have that same situation, but I have little remixes to my story, right? And those little remixes can serve as a big lesson for someone else. So let's say I used to be cool with my landlord, where someone else never knew their landlord, but ultimately we both have the same outcome where our landlord is forcing us to pay expenses that we are not responsible for. The mere fact that I hypothetically knew my landlord may serve as a potential remix to a bigger lesson for someone else. Someone else may be like, I don't really care about the extra expenses thing, but did you know the landlord? Oh, wait, Armani knew the landlord. Okay, so he's not the only person that thought he knew someone and they did something completely out of the norm to him, right? So when you're expressing something from your own experience, that's when your remixes, the unique twists, serve as potential big moments for others' lives. The way that AI is progressing, eventually niche content is going to win. Eventually, people are going to search for the most niche topic out there. And what is a niche topic to certain people is a big topic to other people. For example, let's say a guy wants to search. Normally, my girlfriend is not problematic with me checking her phone, but recently she's been really problematic about it. She even changed her passcode. What does this mean? This is a very niche inquiry, but this niche inquiry is a big moment for this individual's life because this person, chances are their heart is beating through the roof. They're wondering what the heck this means. And the fact that their heart is beating through the roof paints the perception that this is a big moment. But if you're a creator and you're thinking about just numbers, you may ask the question, well, how many people search for that specific blog entry? And you may see 800 searches per year, which is atrocious, right? And you may overlook that niche inquiry. But my philosophy is you should target that niche inquiry, especially if you're going through it, because in the future, AI and all of that, it's going to keep getting smarter. And when people are talking to AI, they're not going to ask surface level questions about, is my girlfriend cheating on me? They're going to ask these niche questions about passcodes, about not sharing phones with one another. What does this mean? How long? All of these niche questions. So, niche topics are big topics for people. It's just we think it's not a big deal because of the numbers involved. For example, another thing is, why does my neck hurt when I am speaking for an extended period of time? Once again, this is a niche topic, but a person that wants to start a podcast and they don't want to keep editing out where they made a mistake, they want to create a beautiful podcast from beginning to end. If their neck keeps on hurting, this is really bad for them. That is preventing them from getting their message out there. So, this is technically a niche inquiry, but in terms of this individual, it's a big inquiry. And that's going to be knowledge that you need to factor in anytime you are evaluating your philosophy for content creation. What type of philosophy do you have? Are you someone who believes that you should create all types of content? Or are you someone that focuses more on the big picture stuff like the hits? But you need a philosophy over time, in my opinion, especially after you've been creating content for 2 to 3 years. Because after the first year, you've probably created a lot of contents on the big topics. But as time goes on by, you may be thinking, well, I've said a lot of what I needed to say. What now? And that's when you can pivot to a bigger branch. For example, a lot of men in the dating sphere, after a while, they feel like they've said everything that they could about dating. So that's when they expand more. What makes for better dating? Well, you have to take care of your grooming. You have to take care of your body. You have to take care of your expenses. And suddenly, these people that were only factoring in dating before are now becoming full fledged self improvement. So, evaluating your content philosophy is something that is really useful and it helps you question why you're doing certain things the way that you're doing. In my opinion, you need to get to a point where you're capable of articulating what you do and you could potentially give an analogy, right? Where I used to have this one friend who did public speaking, but he would coach middle schoolers, right? He wanted the younger generation to learn public speaking so they can be leaders once they get out into the real world. And he was capable of articulating this so well. He was comparing himself to Nickelodeon at one point, right? The analogies that he was using was useful. And I think if you are capable of seeing what's working with other people and using them as an analogy for what you're doing, it helps you crystallize your content philosophy a little bit more. So, one thing that I love about Pokemon is that they have cartoons, they have comic books, they have the games, right? They have movies, they have merchandise, they have everything under the Pokemon universe. And that's something that inspired the Armani Talks brand, where I thought, well, why not have similar stuff with Armani Talks? Rather than just a YouTube channel, you have YouTube, you have books, you have classes, you have audiobooks, right? You have podcasts, you have newsletters, sort of like the whole thing that Pokemon has going on, where Pokemon is a universe of imaginary characters that entertain the junior population around the world. I'm pretty sure the founder of Pokemon, it took him a while to be able to articulate that. And when you see that they were able to articulate that, you can kind of get a stronger philosophy regarding what you are doing. So, analogies are a great way in order to be able to solidify your content philosophy along with your business plan. It makes you more clear about the moves that you are going to be doing. And from there, you feel more purpose in terms of the content that you're creating. Where all creators get burnout. At a certain point, they feel like they have said everything and they feel weird talking about a certain topic. They feel like now they are milking it. And when they're feeling like that for some time, they start to lose love for the brand. And any time that you are losing love for the brand, you need to be able to articulate the why out loud. Sure, you still do it, you still force yourself to do it, right? But at the same time, you don't just want to keep doing something with a dim spirit. You want to be able to articulate it out loud. For example, I was in the gym yesterday and I was doing these squats. I was doing these push-ups. I was doing these pull-ups. And I just kept thinking, why, man? Why? I'm in so much pain. And then I remember this video by this guy named Mike Menser who was talking about his workout philosophy. And I remember the first time I heard this workout philosophy, how much I loved it. He was saying all you need to do is you need to engage the stimulus, and that is about it. And he gave an analogy. He said, if you're chilling in front of a light bulb that's turned on for 3 hours, are you going to get more tan? The answer is no. But what if you are hanging out in front of the sun for 3 hours? Will you get more tan? The answer is yes. Well, what's the difference? The difference is that with the sun, it is engaging a stimulus that activates to your skin, hey, get darker. Where with a light bulb, no stimulus is activated. Now, I apply the same philosophy to working out, where nowadays I work out just for that stimulus. So I'm not going to the gym for 3 to 4 hours, not even an hour. I'll go to the gym for 15 to 20 minutes with the purpose of just engaging the stimulus, where I will do squats until I am feeling pain and I can't do another rep. I'm doing push ups with the same philosophy in mind. I am doing pull ups with the same philosophy in mind. And when I recalled Mike Menser's philosophy with working out, suddenly I viewed it as a challenge. I was like, Armani, you better do these pull ups. You better engage that stimulus. And now, something that I was dreading just moments earlier was something that I was liking now. So you need to be able to do that whenever you are feeling upset about something or you don't want to do a certain task. For example, if you're going through a tough time right now, maybe you are, losing a loved one, maybe you just got a divorce, maybe you just got fired. Initially, it's going to be really tough to be productive. That's why my idea is you give yourself a certain time to be sad. I recommend 1 to 2 weeks max to be sad before you start saying, you know, and now I'm going to start working. So 1 to 2 weeks, right? You say, this is how long I'm going to be sad. I may not have to do anything, but then you have to start working. And when you start working, you may not have the right spirit in mind. You're just going to be like, man, why am I doing this for? I don't even want to be here. Well, you physically feel like that for a reason. Your brain is releasing a lot of cortisol whenever you're stressed, so you don't feel good. But going to the gym will make you feel good. And then slowly, you're capable of articulating out loud a purpose because you need that vision. Once you have that vision, you're no longer dwelling on the past. Now you are reflecting about the past. Dwelling is when you just think about the past and you're like, I can't believe this stuff happened to me. But reflecting is when you are going through those tough moments and you're like, I learned this from it, this from it, this from it. And the only way that you can go from dwelling to reflecting is when you have that vision. So let's say you're someone that just got fired and you gave yourself 1 week to be sad, and now you're in the gym, you're working out, you don't quite know why you're working out, you're looking a little bit better, and now you're doing more research as to why you're looking better. And eventually you're capable of articulating out loud why you are working out. I'm working out because the better that I look, the better that I feel, the better that I feel, the more that I want to do more work. That's why I can't possibly be sad if I am activating this productive flywheel. And once you are capable of articulating it, and at times other people will articulate it for you. Where with Mike Menser, he was capable of sharing his philosophy about working out with me, and it massively influenced the way that I behaved myself. So it could be a philosophy that you design, it could be a philosophy that someone else designs, but ultimately, once you have that vision, and now you're reflecting, now you're thinking, okay, well, I learned this from it, that from it, that from it. And you start to become thankful for that very bad moment. It's tough, right? That's why I say give yourself some time to be sad, where that's perfectly normal. where if you are someone that is a big doer, you may try to bury the pain, but give yourself some time, my friend, to be sad. And by having those sad moments, that's when you are capable of learning more about yourself. But don't be sad too long. Whenever you're sad too long, now it just becomes this personality trait. You just get stuck in dwelling. You just keep asking questions like, why me? Why me? Why me? And instead of now just saying, why me? You become whiny. So that's not a good thing to do. Eventually, you want to get up, you want to go to the gym, you want to do something productive, and you want to keep working on articulating your vision. The words, whenever you're capable of putting words to ambiguous concepts, that's when it adds clarity in your mind. And clarity is all that we are going for. Clarity will allow someone to push mountains from left to right. Like, for example, if someone is telling me to just run, right? Armani, just run. I'm running and running, and no one tells me for how long to run. Eventually, I'm going to start second guessing myself. But if someone says, Armani, run for 20 minutes, and if you are capable of doing that, you will win $500,000. Now I have a target, I have clarity, and maybe I was running the same amount before, but I wasn't doing it with the same spirit before. Versus when I have that clarity, I am doing it with the right spirit. So clarity is a big part of feeling better. This is a self improvement hack completely. Where some people, when they're feeling very lazy, all they do is they force themselves to do the work, and they may feel lazy again, 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 and they never for a second try to gain clarity. Simply in the process of trying to articulate, why am I doing this? You are going to add a lot of clarity. And that's where, when someone is struggling for that clarity, if you could even guide them, that's a good thing. But clarity is one of the best ways for becoming more productive. It's very invisible, but with that clarity of, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, the narrative mind gets engaged, the logical mind gets engaged, and now your limbs get engaged as well. So, self improvement, there's a lot of different strategies with it. Self improvement overall is something that teaches you a lot about managing others. This idea with clarity, that's not something that you only need to keep with self improvement. This is something that you can apply to a lazy coworker. Maybe this lazy coworker is like, man, I just feel like I'm doing all these random tasks and I don't know why. This is when you tell them why. You are doing these tasks for X, Y, and Z reasons. And suddenly, a person that you considered very lazy before is no longer lazy. This is a person who is more than willing to do a lot of work. They just needed an idea of why they were doing what they were doing. So I've been talking for a while. Leveling up, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think if you want to consistently level up, you definitely want to check out the Level Up Mentality book right on here. Level Up Mentality has been released in 2019, and since then, it has sold thousands of copies. It is available on paperback, ebook, audiobook, Kindle, all the different formats. I'm going to drop the links in the description box. And you could also go on ArmaniTalks.com. You can click shop. You can go on Amazon. You can go on Audible. Level Up Mentality is all about stop competing with other people so much. Compete with your prior day self, because you don't always know what other people are optimizing their lives for. So you may get jealous about the wrong things. But when you are competing against your prior day self, you know exactly what you are optimizing for. And this allows you to make sure that you are on track. So leveling up is all about going on a competition with your prior day self for the rest of your life. And that is when you start to unlock many other different mindsets. Within the Level Up Mentality, you are also going to learn the beauty of um, chronicling your work, right? You don't just want to do a certain task, you want to write it out. You want to speak it out. You want to see your progress in real time, share it with the public. There are a lot of unique tips on self-improvement in the level up mentality. So grab your copy today. And I want to say thank you very much for joining me on the Armani Talks show, and hit subscribe. Don't forget, all right? Hit subscribe, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. Thank you for joining me, and I will catch you next time.